stop this fire. I was born to be making history. Something greater, something higher. Ain't nothing gonna stop this fire.
Hello everyone, this is your boy D Phantom, and we're recording the Ember podcast. With me, I've got my co-host Sinbad.
What's up, man? Glad to be here and glad to be back on this show with everyone here today. We have a lot of awesome guests on, so it's gonna be a fun show.
We have our two guests, Lyot
Hello, everybody.
and Arius.
Hey, how's it going?
Today's topic will be about apocalypse, delays, and monetization, all that goodness. And our first topic of the day will be the BR server shutting down. And on the 11th, or on the open beta, and it was delayed till the 11th. And we're going to be talking about if that was a good decision or a bad decision on Steven's part. Sinbad, what do you think about this?
So personally, for the delay for the Battle Royale, when it comes down to it, it is necessary. Yes, they're getting some things improved. They're getting some, some patches out there that were, kind of fixing things. But if they felt like, they didn't have the experience that they wanted people to have and they needed to take some time to actually make it happen, I think it's better that they did. Just sitting on a problem and letting it fester isn't good. So the fact that they're actually addressing it and taking action on it, even if it means that we can't play it for a week or two, that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think they were a little overzealous with the open beta coming out in, as early as they did. I think they should have kind of foresaw the future and maybe even not had the server migrate on the same day as their open beta. They had a lot of problems with their initial launch that, I don't know, really put a bad taste in our mouth for the community, and a lot of people took that as it was very negative for a lot of people, because there's a lot of people's first time seeing the BR, and maybe even Ashes of Creation in general, and for having them have the first impression be this wasn't good. However, saying all this, I do think it was a good decision on Steven's part to delay it till, it was a hard decision and a lot of people were upset over it, but I do think it was the correct one. What do you think, Wyatt?
I mean, I definitely have to agree on that subject. It's just pushing it off while it wasn't working was really the only thing that they could do, because just exasperating the situation and continuing to promise that it's gonna come out, in a couple of hours or in a day, and then missing that wasn't a winning strategy. I don't think as many people are angry about it being delayed as people were getting mad about missing the deadlines consistently. So getting a larger push out that they're probably going to be able to hit is kind of what they had to do there.
Yeah, for me personally, it's very disappointing to, anytime I can't play the BR is just a sad time, but, gotta do what's right for the community. What do you think, Arius?
Well, I'm looking at the situation from a couple of different angles. First of all, I think it was almost a situation of putting the cart before the horse. And what I mean by that is that they let the alphas and the beta Kickstarter backers into the game, and they had the content creators promoting the game and announcing that they were going to have an open beta. And then we continue to push the open beta forward for them and recruit people to come inside. And some of those people who don't even own Ashes did end up getting into this open beta. And then it was suddenly cut off. Now, yes, things need to be worked on, and it is an evolving thing, and perhaps it is best that they did bring it down. But ultimately, I feel that perhaps they should have waited on bringing it and calling it an open beta, or letting everyone and their brother in until they had a more stable client, and then if they opened it up tomorrow or the next day and and then that was the open beta, that would be one thing. But to open up the beta and then to shut it off and then to bring it back later, that's concerning. That there should have been some more forethought.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's what I think as well. There's a lot of, I think he could have, I don't know, foreseen the future, maybe kind of think maybe this is a little bit too early, play it safe and, give the developers a little bit more time to make the more ironclad of a client. I feel like they were having problems, just with the closed beta, they were having problems to just keep just the Kickstarters and whatnot, and having that stable. Why bring in a whole bunch of new people? We even had some big streamers stream the game and they were having problems, and that's not good for the product at all.
I will say though that the state of the game though at the time, even with the like unable to squad queue and so forth, the gameplay itself was still
Yes.
fun and it was engaging. So as far as that goes, it was good, and that the game will evolve throughout an alpha and a beta process as the client gets updated, and that's all to be expected, and that's fine. We're not looking for a finished product right now, It's I don't know. It just seems like maybe too much is made out of it, but at the same time, on the at least as far as the gameplay, but within the social aspects of the community, there's the issue because now streamers are being asked about betas and when is it coming back and what happened to this game, and then that puts a lot of pressure
Exactly.
on the content creators that what do? We kind of shrug.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it does kind of leave us in an awkward situation where we've been pushing people to get ready to play this, and then suddenly that date just gets ripped out
Right.
from under us, and we're
Right,
like,
they got like 3 days.
sorry.
Yeah.
Exactly, man. When it comes down to it, one of the reasons we as a guild, Ember as a guild hasn't really done much around the battle royale is just we can't get its schedule. We can't basically create any events around it, because as soon as we do, plans change, and that's understandable for a game in development. But they keep pushing it as like its own product, as its own entity at this point. But yeah, I think you're right, Arius. When it comes down to it, they put the cart before the horse, basically, or the horse before the cart, whatever it is. They put that in the incorrect order, and essentially what they caused was a lot of confusion, a lot of frustration, and I think that's going to be a lesson that they need to learn early on, especially for when we get to other portions of the APOC, and then eventually the alphas and betas for the actual game, for Ashes of Creation, the actual game itself, the MMO.
Yeah.
Still fun as hell, though.
Yeah. Still,
Yes.
it was like, once
It was
I
a fun
into the
game.
game,
Definitely.
I didn't crash at all. It felt pretty good, but I definitely see what you guys are saying. Once you begin this slippery slope, it's hard to depend on Intrepid to, you see these release dates, and you don't know, maybe I used to, get everything done so I can play for that day, and I'll be able to play that day. But, the delay, by either an hour or a day, or, who knows what's going to be going on. So now it's becoming a slippery slope where we can't depend on these release dates anymore. And I don't think that's a good thing. Hopefully they, they improve Castle in, when they release the Castle Siege. Hopefully, when they bring it to everyone else in the open beta, that they, have a more stable client, more stable, just in general game, and hopefully it'll be better.
Well, yeah.
Also, I think that they can definitely improve on their ability to announce that they're having a problem, because we run into this situation where it's like, okay, we're gonna open up the service at 7:00, and we don't hear anything until 8:30.
Yeah, and then like, okay, and another 30 minutes, guys. Give us another 30 minutes, and then hour and a half rolls by. Okay, guys, we gotta call it. Or it's the same thing over and over again. So, time and time again, I see myself streaming a loading screen, waiting for Steven to say the mighty words of, "Hey, glorious Ashes community, this is delayed."
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's the thing, right? It's become a problem to a point where people go, "Oh, it's Intrepid time. That's 8+ hours from now."
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
they say it's going to happen next week. They mean next month, basically, right?
Yeah,
So
I mean, it's a meme now, but in hindsight, it really isn't good for the game or
Yeah.
the studios.
Yeah, I mean, we can certainly laugh about it now, like on this podcast, but sitting there and experiencing it was not
Yeah.
that.
No.
Right.
No.
Now, I do want to kind of emphasize, obviously, this is, still a very much a live development. There's going to be delays.
Mhm.
Um, I think that it's okay to have delays. I think the biggest thing is just, making sure that when they are going to put a product out there and then start, basically advertising that product as its own thing, that they need to make sure that, they're not putting it out as like, I guess the way that they've been doing it so far, where basically they're expecting people to come on and play. They need to basically tell people like, hey, it's still very much having issues. We're probably going to have this range of time, and then it probably would be delayed through this range of time. But as soon as it comes up, we'll send out a message letting you guys know.
I I have some thoughts to every developer of any video game out there. A trend that I keep seeing lately, and this isn't just Intrepid. Like I've seen other studios do this recently, but it's been going back a couple of years now, and that is that I feel like instead of working on their product and getting their product together and getting it in, if you pardon the pun, but putting it in the box and ready to ship, and then announcing, hey, we've got this thing coming on X date, we're going to drop it on this
Yeah.
date, and while in the meantime what they should be doing is double checking, triple checking any bugs that are in it and start working on the next patch for that game before that game ever drops. Instead, I feel like, hey, we just got this out of the cooker 20 minutes ago. We're going to serve it to you right now. It could potentially have massive bugs in it. And I keep seeing this from a lot of studios. Create your product first, then announce we're going to drop it on X date.
See,
Mhm.
I think it's fine for Intrepid to be doing, right out of the oven technique when it was just the closed beta, when it was just the Kickstarter's testing, because we knew that it was the development is fluid.
We are the testing server.
Yeah, exactly. So that was fine, but when they did that with the open beta, that was not okay because
Especially when they're looking to monetize it so heavily.
exactly,
Right.
it was even worse. It was just like, oh man, it was just a slap to the face, and then it kicked me while I'm down. Oh boy. However, I'm gonna bring us for a second point. What kind of changes to the battle royale are we wanting to see? Whether it be balances or what kind of fun things do you guys want to see in the next instance of the test, which will be in the Friday the 11th,
Mhm.
which is the next 2
Well,
days.
I know exactly what Danny is going to complain about.
Freaking Melee is too overpowered. I need to get out of my face. But yeah.
Press Q, they walk around, they die. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Bone Smasher is pretty rough. There's a couple of just really overpowered things. But yeah, what's the first things that come to your mind when you think of balance for the Battle Royale?
So personally, what I would like to see more of is the one to like coming back a little bit. It got nerfed, I think, a little bit too hard to
Oof,
where
yeah.
you don't even want to pick it up anymore. You want to pick up, the Rifter or, like the Nightfall Bow, but you don't want to pick up that freaking one to light any longer, which is sad because I had a lot of fun with it. You had a lot of fun being like a Harry Potter in the game, right?
Yeah.
The second
Not
thing,
to mention some of the first quests were like deal 10,000 damage with a one.
right?
Yeah.
So they need to bring that back up. I think it was honestly fine before. You had a good alternative. Now with the Rifter being as strong as it is, maybe just a little bit underneath the original damage that the one light was doing, but it needs to be viable. Like I shouldn't have to worry about, using that because whenever I pick it up, I know I'm going to lose in a fight. The other part of it as well would be, like you said, the Bone Smasher. Taking the dot and having a much shorter dot. Like a shorter duration on that. Because otherwise it is just way overpowered. And like you're not going to be able to do anything once you get hit.
Yeah, and see how melee in general is very overpowered because you can lunge from freaking like the other side of the freaking map and you can catch some guy. That's one. Two, it deals an insane amount of damage. Any two-handed sword or anything will be able to hit around 40-50 damage, which is a quarter of your health. And on top of that, you have your lunge, and then after your lunge, you're able to do another instance of damage almost simultaneously, dealing almost 100 damage in what seems like a second, which is not okay. Now we can even, sorry for me to kind of go on this rant, but even you can even add on to this, and you can cancel the animations currently with any armor ability, which means that you can literally do a combo in like within a second and the guy is dead. I've done it multiple times. I've made it sure that to the community, you know, this is what the combo is, and you can currently with any weapon, you can do with a one weapon called the Essence Reaver, which deals about 70 77 damage if it's the legendary form, and it'll and you can animation cancel that. That's 3 hits and you're dead. And I've done it before where the people have no chance to react in time, which is, in my opinion, way too overpowered. They have to nerf the lunge, the distance. There has to be some sort of cooldown on it, so then you're not able to fly through the air. Maybe adjust some of the numbers on the damage with the melees. But right now it feels like, I'm generally wanting to range and take my fights from afar, but then I had people literally just running at me, holding right and left click, lunging at me, and I had nothing. I couldn't get away. I tried blinking. The blink distance is about the same distance as 2 lunges.
Yeah.
Which is just not okay.
I think maybe what they could do with that is stamina regen. So instead of like the damage that the melee weapons do specifically, make it to where your stamina regen is a little bit slower. And it eats up the same amount, but you don't regen it as quickly. If you have to be conscious about your stamina more, you're not going to be as willing to, waste it trying to fly through the air to chase someone. You're not going to be wanting to constantly lunge. You're going to have to basically get one lunge, maybe one swipe in, and then back off for a second, and then take a tactical approach to it.
Yeah,
I would definitely agree to that if they made melee attack take slightly less stamina. If you were going to make regen long.
okay.
I have a little different point of view on how to fix it, because it's not just lunge. It's, as you were mentioning, that it's a multiple combo of things that you can do together. I think what is lacking is a global cooldown on uses of abilities, because while I like the mobility in the game, it can become too much. And while I like in using lunge to move around, or if almost fly in certain instances, to be able to get away from fall damage through lunge instead of using boots, which is a whole nother side topic. If we gave it like a 0.5 cooldown whenever you lunged or did any attack, then suddenly you wouldn't have this, you wouldn't go click, 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 or click, 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 and just melt somebody who's completely in red armor. And the more, like, if the more you use something like a lunge, let it increase that global cooldown counter within a number of seconds, like for, within 5 seconds or whatever the case may be. Maybe play around with that. So that way it would use up more stamina if you repeatedly used it.
I like that. I was thinking to myself a couple of times, debating while in my queue time of, in the freaking ashes, I was thinking to myself, well, how would I balance the melee? And every time I came back to it, I always thought, giving a lunge has to have a cooldown. And I do like having a global cooldown in all. It makes it feel more tactical rather than just spamming. Okay, you're dead. It
Right.
feels like you're actually aiming. Maybe you strafe to the left, maybe backwards, and you're actually like timing your hits with the swings. Depending on what kind of if you have a two-handed or maybe one-handed. Depending on what kind of weapon you have. Timing your swings, and feels a little bit more tactical rather than I'm a brainless zombie chasing you with my lunge.
And maybe when we get a dagger, that dagger's special Q ability could be removing the cooldown on lunges for like 10 seconds.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe one thing they could also do is add some iframes to your dodge roll. Just because realistically, I've never had to use it, or really ever I want to use it. It's not effective for me. I'd rather dodge. Well, I'd rather lunge away than dodge. And I think they need to make that actually a part of the game. You know, if you add like a simple iframe to your dodge animation, where basically when you start the animation to when you finish the roll, I think that would make it much more useful, and more people would actually want to use it as a tactical element in the combat. Yeah, I'm very much a Dark Souls player for me, so like that's one of the biggest things, like the backstep in Dark Souls 2 or the roll. Those are actually were very useful in that kind of combat, and I feel like it would lend well to this kind of combat as well.
Yeah, I agree because right now the dodge roll is useless. Lunge by far, does much more distance than the dodge roll, and in any fight, you're just wasting 25 stamina on the dodge roll that you could be using on a swing.
Yeah.
Not
or
to
a
mention,
lunge.
lunge also gives a bonus damage on top of on that
Exactly.
initial hit instead of just hitting someone. Yeah,
That and a lunge can go up. A dodge roll can't.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. So they need to
So
make
they
that
have
more
to-
useful
yeah.
for sure.
I think lunge needs to not ignore gravity. It needs to let gravity continue to affect it.
See, now I'm fine with it having, able to do like a little lunge up, but having a cooldown on it would make it so you aren't able to fly through the air. Being able to maybe lunge up through like over like a fence or over a little gate. That's in my opinion not that game breaking.
That brings me back to the cat boots, because the cat boots are specifically there to deny damage from falling. And if you jump off the castle, off the keep, and you're about to hit the ground, if you lunge, you just negated all of that, and you'll be perfectly fine.
Maybe
Not-
make it so you can't lunge in midair then.
Yeah, like I said, honestly, just nerfing lunge to the point where it's only used in your combat.
Combat initiative, or perhaps an escape. Yeah.
Exactly. Like, maybe, like I said, like nerfing its cooldown or making it have a cooldown and nerfing its distance, maybe half the distance, and maybe having the dodge roll have more distance than the lunge. I don't know. Maybe not. I'm not sure. But yeah, just a lot of our problems in the BR in melee always fall back to the lunge is overpowered. Just in every shape and form. I was able to abuse so many different mechanics with the lunge. Like I was able to get some crazy places on the castle with the lunge. You're able to do some insane things right now. That it's game breaking.
Don't get me wrong, it's
fun.
hilariously fun and absurd.
Mhm.
I love being able to dash between windows and feel like Spider-Man zipping around the city.
That is
but
true.
I don't think it's good for competitive gameplay.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, you can implement that. It'd be more. Right now, it feels a lot more like a Fortnite game. Where you basically can just kind of get around real quickly. I don't mind that aspect as much, but I'd rather have more uses for what the rest of my toolkit is. Essentially versus just spamming one or two things. That's pretty much all I have to do. I'd like to basically be able to utilize more of my toolkit and what I actually have on me as a character. I think that would increase the skill cap level. It'd also make it a lot more repetitive kind of gameplay, because you want to master that then, right? So I think it would make it a little bit more long-term gameplay for me, at least.
Yeah, I want to experience those same things, but in actual items, not in just a lunge. Like I have different things able, there's a couple of different things that you could play around with, adding different items in, and with these other items that come in, or different assets that come in through Castle Siege and Horde mode, they will transfer those same assets to the BR, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Which then maybe new items, maybe a dagger will pop in, and that way they can fill in the slot of like Lyat suggested, if they had the cooldown on a lunge, that the daggers would eliminate that cooldown. Because right now all you have to do is just lunge and you're fine. You can kill anyone you want with just lunge and just left click. Right, and left click's all you need. But does anyone else have any battle royale changes or kind of fixes they want to see?
I want to see more armor options in general.
Okay.
Yeah, I think a couple more. Maybe that's not like super high priority right now, but definitely a couple more time.
Yeah, more variety gives different combos and just a lot of different things to play around with. But I think we'll see that, like I said before, as we get more assets with the different modes in Apocalypse.
Maybe a cool one would be, something similar to the Nightfall bow, but like on your boots or something, to where like it kind of blinks you forward a little bit, not quite as far as regular Blink boots, but it like drops like a bunch of smoke where you're going, essentially.
Okay, yeah,
Oh,
like
that's
a
neat.
rogue ability, almost.
Yeah,
Like icy
Smoke
step
bomb.
gone into a smoke form
right.
almost that
Yeah.
covers you.
Yeah. Additional variety is something I think we can all flat out agree on. There's other weapon types that they've announced, but we don't see any evidence of yet, like the orbs. I know that's a ranged weapon. I'd like to see how that handles.
Right.
Anyways, moving on to our third topic of the day, Castle Siege being delayed alongside, the Battle Royale open beta got shut down, and on top of that announcement, we got the Castle Siege getting delayed. Do you think that was a good, what kind of impact do you think that had on the community? Do you think it was a good idea to delay it? Maybe not announce that. I feel like we always get that, um, that, predicament of Steven told us that Castle Siege is going to be in December. We were always referring to this roadmap, and we knew that Castle Siege was going to get delayed, and inevitably it did. And everyone, I don't know, it's almost like it wasn't a shock to everyone, and that's terrible. Like, we knew that it was going to get delayed before when he announced it. Like, it felt terrible. What do you guys think?
I think that them focusing on one project at a time is far better than them trying to balance the BR and work on the BR to bring it back up as well as do Castle Sieges at the same time. And their core group working on Ashes of Creation, the MMO. Inside the project of Apocalypse, I really feel that they got to get one cleaned up first, and then move on to the next, and then move on to Horde. So, because if they try to bite off more than they can chew at any given time, then we're not going to get anywhere, and our wheels are just going to spin. It's going to be delay after delay after delay, and the product will suffer.
I know Intrepid consists of a lot of industry veterans, people who have a lot of online games under their belt, but something that they kind of need to keep in mind is that Intrepid itself is a new studio, and they still have a lot to prove to people. So missing deadlines like this is their first foray into the industry as a company. And while they do have some names inside the company with their own pull, the company's name itself is more important than any individual, and they need to put their best foot forward to keep people having faith in Intrepid. You don't want to have a situation where people are thinking of you like Bethesda, where there's 99 bugs in the game right when it releases.
Right. I think honestly, just having played so many MMOs throughout my life, I think it's okay that they delay this, right? I think they have to communicate it well, and they have to make sure people understand that it's not going to be permanently delayed. You don't want someone thinking, oh, it's another Star Citizen, for example. But you do want people to understand, like, they're not going to release a garbage product. That's, I think, the really big thing, that people expect quality from this. And if they release something that's halfway done, it's going to cause people to leave. People won't give it a second chance, and the game will fail. So I'd rather that they delay it, come out with something good, than to have to worry about it basically being the next, like you said, the next Bethesda, or the next, BioWare game, or, whatever else, EA's sending out there nowadays.
I'd rather them delay it now than open it up into an open beta and shut it down for another month, as we've just seen. So
Most
better
definitely.
better choice.
Yeah, I think it goes back to the point that we made in topic one, where it's less the delaying itself and more just the communication about the delaying. They could have probably announced that earlier.
Yeah. I don't think everyone realizes that, anyone who's really following Ashes knows that, this is like development is fluid, and we expect delays. We expect, that's part of testing, that's part of development. But it's the way that they're saying it, or the lack of communication. We've covered this topic before on this podcast where their communication really just sucks. Just and hopefully, we've seen some changes already with the new CM coming in, and hopefully she'll be able to really help Intrepid's forefront in communication.
Hmm. I think she's already made some good changes, honestly. It seems like the Discord itself has
Hmm.
been, moderated a lot differently lately, and we're seeing a lot of the toxicity that was in this community starting to evaporate because of it. She's already done a, whole Ask Me Anything Reddit questionnaire, and people asked her a ton of questions, and she answered a lot of them
Hmm.
actually. There's a whole Q&A list that we can just go through if we wanted to actually. So I think that was a very smart choice from Steven, and I'm hoping that we don't just get the pleasant answers that we want to hear, but the real answers from this new community marketing manager.
I agree. Um, Moving on to topic 4, which is Castle Siege theory crafting. What kind of class kits are we expecting? What kind of fun weapons? What kind of fun sieging weapons are we expecting? What kind of mechanics are we expecting? What do you guys think?
So with the Castle Siege, as far as like the mechanics themselves, I know that they've said that the siege equipment will be stationary. So there'll probably be like points you can capture and build up a siege weapon real quickly that you can use to get through the next wall. At least that's kind of my picture of it. And then as far as class kits go, I'm thinking what they'll probably end up doing is taking a lot of the abilities off of the armor and weapons in the battle royale and just sticking that on your toolbar. I'm not sure if they'll actually have any kind of healer or any kind of person that would be able to, kind of fill that role or fill the role of a tank necessarily. You might have like a bulwark in the roles, but I'm not sure about a traditional tank or anything like that.
Well, I mean, I was one of the people who ran into Intrepid at PAX East, and they had a pretty decent mock-up of what they want to do with the MMO,
Hmm.
and they had 2 dungeons that you could run, and there were actual like classic RPG abilities with healing and that kind of thing. So we might actually get to see stuff like that in the Castle Siege,
Yeah.
but I expect that we're not going to see some of the stuff that I guess a lot of people are looking forward to. Like, I don't think we're going to see summoners. I don't think those are
Mm.
going to be in the Castle Siege whatsoever.
Have they announced how many class kits there's gonna be?
I'm thinking probably like 4.
That's what I thought too. I thought I read somewhere or saw somewhere that there was going to be 4, and I'm sure that they're definitely gonna have assets from the BR. So that we're gonna see, we've seen the trailers for the Castle Siege,
Hmm.
and so we've seen like where they incorporated the grimoire, the yeah, I think we saw the visibility, the bulwarks, and we're probably and kind of pairing up the different weapons and armor sets that we see from the BR, I could probably have a good generalization of what the class kits are gonna have. You have the bulwark, you have the shield, the sword and shield for the tank. You've got the nightfall bow and the catfall boots for the archer. Um, what kind of other? What do you think the 2 other class kits are gonna be?
So,
Sorcerer?
Cleric and Wizard.
Yeah.
I mean that's exactly what they had in the PAX mock-up. It was the tank, it was the ranger, it was the wizard, and the cleric. So that just kind of makes perfect.
Yeah, and all the assets that we see from if they do incorporate a cleric, um, all the assets that we see from that are going to be completely new because there isn't anything like that in the BR.
Hmm.
So which is kind of exciting. Now what kind of sieging? They said that they're going to have sieging weapons. What kind of things are we thinking for that?
Well, trebuchets and potion launchers are the most
Yeah.
obvious choice.
That's gonna be so much fun.
Now, see, here's what I want, man. I want a catapult that I can get on top of, and it can fling me over the wall. You know, or I can then yell like, Leroy Jenkins as I jump in through there, trying to kill everything. Be fun.
That sounds like a fun weapon.
That
I'd
would
go
be
for
great. So
Wile
you're
E.
gonna be
Coyote.
you're gonna be able to destroy the walls, right, with these sieging weapons, and
Yeah.
then infiltrate them, right?
Yep, that's the idea.
So in the mode, once you get inside the castle siege, what do you have to do? Do you have to? Is there like a certain point you have to reach and then game over?
So
I'm guessing it's going to use a ticketing system where you have to take over points, and whoever has the majority of people in that point, they like say it starts at 500, and it loses one tick every couple of seconds.
So they
Mm.
they explained this once. So Steven actually explained this once on a recording I have. He actually said that, so the way that's going to work, you have two different teams, right? You have the defending team, the attacking team. They each have different spawn points that they can reach, and as they continue to kind of move forward, the spawn points get further and further back, almost like a battlefield game in a sense. The other thing as well is that each time you die, you have a penalty for how long it takes you to spawn. So it kind of becomes like a snowball effect. But you do have different points you have to capture. Once you get to a final keep, in that keep, you have to basically capture a specific like crystal or a specific like item, basically, that only the guild leader or only the person like leading the raid can do, or one of his chosen officers. And you can only have one other person besides him that can do it. So
Hmm.
to defend that, what I'm thinking you might want to do then is basically have a couple people in, invisibility gear, just sitting up there with their miasma bows, and just pop the guy as soon as he comes in. You know,
Yeah,
And
we
they
all know Danny's going to try to use a rifter to freaking throw them off.
throwback. But so they also said that there was going to be a hierarchy of voice comms within the game, right? With
Oh, wow.
VIOP within the game, right? I think, right?
I wonder how they would pull that off. To be honest, like
I
you'd have to
don't
have multiple
know.
hotkeys.
I thought I read somewhere that you'd have almost like your generals, and then it has a hierarchy of like
Hmm.
general squad leaders, and then within the squads, and then it trickles down. I think that'd be really cool if they can incorporate that. I don't know if that's true or not.
That could work. I mean, I'm not sure if that's what they're planning, but that could definitely work. It would make things a lot simpler for us to manage in game. Obviously, you have Discord as well, so if they don't have that in there, you can still kind of manage it. And Discord is just a little bit more difficult because you have to take yourself out of that channel and move yourself in another channel.
Exactly, it'll be a little bit more difficult.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that were to happen, how it would automatically, because you're gonna be queuing up, and it's gonna be 200 people thrown in, 100v100. I wonder how it's gonna, determine who's the general, who's the squad leaders, who's just like the little minions.
Hmm.
If it's just by chance or maybe by previous game
Leaderboards.
ranks. Yeah, I hope it would be, not by chance, because then you
Right.
could get like a new general and throw the game essentially.
It should be the person that cues the game. So the person that essentially brings the parties together, pulls them into his queue, and then that person would be the one that would be designated the raid leader, or the basically the general in that case, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then personally, he could then assign one other person to be his officer that can also do it as well.
And you're going to be able to queue up with groups up to 20, if I'm correct, right?
Right now, yeah, right now. So I'm not sure. Maybe it could be also a voting system. Maybe it could be agreed on beforehand.
That's very interesting. That could it's gonna be very interesting because we're gonna have our first kind of taste of it the end of January. It's the
Hmm.
last Stephen said. So I'm sure everyone's looking forward to Castle Siege. A lot of people were disappointed with the BR, and as MMO players, rightfully so. So a lot of people have been looking forward to the Castle Siege. So it'll be a lot is riding on this. A lot is riding on this.
Oh yeah.
Hopefully no more delays. But anyway, going on to that topic, on our fifth topic.
Before we move off this topic, there is one thing
Okay.
that I'm hoping for, and it's an extreme long shot, but
Ooh.
it's a feature that people have been talking about for quite a while, and that's the promise of the epic mounts. I hope that there's an objective that you can complete somewhere on the map, and it spawns a dragon for your team that you
Oh, that
can
would be
use to
awesome.
wreak havoc on the enemy castle.
That would be really cool. I would definitely like that. The fight would be then who gets to ride the dragon.
Yes.
You get players killing each other. They're like, no, it's mine. I'm gonna take it.
Yeah, like a
I-
kill streak of 30, and then you unlock a dragon and start. Oh man, that'd be crazy.
Instead of the
Yeah,
battle
Call
royale,
of-
it becomes Call of Duty.
Exactly. It's like a Call of Duty version of helicopter. Instead of
Oh,
that,
man.
just a dragon. Oh man.
And I only had one. There's only one thing that stands out in my mind about the Castle Siege, and that is, out of everything that we've talked about, it's going to be finding the balance between offense and defense. That's the part that scares me the most, because any changes to any classes along the way, even the smallest changes, can give one side or another. Like we've changed the power by slightly doing this or whatever, that can cause either the offense or the defense to reign supreme in that, so that, oh man, we're offense, we're never going to win. We never, a 85% loss on offense side. We got to be very, very careful. And that's super hard to balance. I've seen BRs in other games. Well, not BR. But I've seen things like this in other games that have that it really does throw it off. Because if you're defending your castle from getting that attack, you can't make them so powerful that they can hold off a horde, and just sit in their place and hunker down. And on the same side, you don't want the offense to steamroll over the other group.
Right. Now, part of this though is that when we get actually to the real MMO and we're doing castle sieges, there is player collision in this game, so you can't necessarily move past a player. If in the actual MMO you have people that can heal and people that can tank, actually really tank or even do like evasive tanking, basically where they can just sit there and hold that spot in a hallway, how do you get past them? If you have like 5 healers and 5 tanks, just one area, you can't move past them, and they just keep healing and keep tanking at the same time.
Well, if you're Danny, you just raffle stomp them all.
Right. Danny's on our team. We win.
That would hopefully there would be some sort of mechanic of AoE that would be strong enough to deal enough damage to the back line, or in that case, hopefully be able to get into the back line, infiltrate the back line, and be able to rip him apart that way.
Hopefully, yeah.
Hopefully.
'Cause-
Yeah, I hope spacing is going to be rather important in this.
Yeah.
Effective AoE will hopefully eliminate that.
You could also use possibly like the mage's ability, which one of the mage's abilities that we learned early on was a teleport room. They could basically teleport an enemy to a certain location. So that could be an honestly good way to kind of get past that. Or you could teleport yourself. You use your blink to get through it and then just nuke the back line. But it depends on how many people they can stick in a hallway. If they can get like
Exactly.
50 people in there, it's not going to matter. Just because at that point, it doesn't matter how many AoEs you got, you're just getting so much heals. Especially if they use some of like the class kits from the arena at PAX. And like I went to PAX West as well. The cleric, they had a AoE heal that they could stick down like a little totem, and it would just heal everything in a circle around it. And it actually had a pretty good tick. And it also did damage to the enemy as well.
Jeez.
And then their heals also
I
chained.
hope that's not I hope that's not going to be in the castle siege. That sounds bad.
It does. I mean, it would make it so difficult to get past certain things if you didn't have the right DPS to deal with it, or the right counter tactics to deal with it.
Large scale PvP always scares me because there's so many, it's like if your team is coordinated enough, you can do some crazy things. But then on the other hand, you could be defending a castle and everyone could be just running out to the castle just trying to get frags, or, not playing the game correctly. With that many numbers, it's very likely to have a couple trolls on your team to just go out, or maybe even noobs. They don't even know what they're doing. But in large scale PvP like that, it scares me because there's a lot of variables, right? More
Right.
numbers, more variables, and that scares me because
Yeah.
who
Not
knows?
not to mention it also devalues personal skill a lot more and puts much more
True,
emphasis
but
on confusion. And of course, Danny is petrified of anything that makes it so his personal skill values.
Right.
Anyways, does anyone else have any ideas for the castle siege or anything they want to add on to that topic?
I think there should be the ability to set up traps. You know,
Oh,
have basically
that'd be
pitfall
cool.
traps, have
Yeah.
something swing down from the roof, and if you're not paying attention, if you trip like a wire, like maybe a log that swings down with spikes on it or something.
It's a trap.
Yeah.
Maybe like a 5-minute period before the match starts where you
Oh,
can
that'd
set
be
up
so
defenses.
cool.
Make it a
I
lot more
really like that
tactical.
idea.
Yeah, it'd be almost like a mix of Rainbow.
Rainbow Six Siege.
Yeah, Siege. Yep.
Exactly like that. Yeah, and then it'd be really cool. Like almost like I don't know how you would do it where the attacking team, that's just like they're almost marching to the castle siege, and in that time you have like a 5-minute buffer where you can, ready your defenses both like, position wise and, traps in different
And
ways,
give the attackers something to do as well. They can like ready siege weapons and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and maybe
yeah.
decide these trebuchets go here, our battering ram goes here. That
Yeah. Now, one thing that also with the actual sieges in game, once we get to the MMO portion of it, they said that they will have heroes that you could have in your castle. So basically, an NPC that is like a mini boss. And so you could set those up. I would hope you could set those up in certain areas of the castle so you could kind of customize its layout and kind of give people surprises where they enter into a room and all of a sudden there's just 2 heroes there guarding that room. So that way you could kind of split your forces a little bit better, and you could make it to where you're not having to worry about having your forces completely spread out. You could focus them on a couple spots.
I think that'd be very interesting and kind of, I don't know, in that time too, because how long are these castle sieges gonna last?
2 hours.
Jeez.
Oh man, that's a commitment to join the room.
It is, but I mean,
sounds like my
longest-
kind of commitment, man.
Yeah, that's a
At
single.
the-
Oh my.
at the same time, it should be though. It's a really big thing to lose. So I personally would love to have that time sink there, because it means that the only people that are going to come and attack you are the people that really want it, or the people that are really bored. One of the two.
Yeah, but like with the game mode with that much time into it, just that length, there's definitely should be a lot of prior. There's got to be prior, scheduling, and not only that, but like lots of strategy to go with it. So it would be kind of weird if we were just like thrown into this match. Okay, run at this castle, go. I definitely want to see more of a tactical approach to the castle siege. But if nobody has any more ideas, that's a big topic. But we'll move on to our 5th topic of the day. What would another delay mean for Trepid? We've been talking about the castle siege delay, the battle royale, or the open beta, shutting down, and there's been multiple delays for Intrepid, and it's become a meme at this point. What would what if castle siege got delayed? What would that mean for Trepid?
Again, we've covered this point. It all depends on how it's communicated. If it's, a day later and we're being told that it's delayed and we haven't gotten any communication on it, then that's going to piss people off in a big way. But if we find out, maybe a week beforehand or even a couple of days beforehand that they have to delay, I don't think people are going to be nearly as angry.
Yeah, as long as it's not an experience as another game that recently came out, a water-based game. That's all I'll say, where they announce 30 minutes to 2 hours after the fact that something was supposed to go live, that we're pushing it back another day or another couple of days. We need to know beforehand. And I don't think that it's as big of a deal to push back Castle because they haven't put it in the hands of even the alpha and beta testers yet, much less the open beta people. So where the BR has been in the hands of people, people are craving that now, where they look forward to Castles, but none of us have played Castles yet, so it's okay for them to push that back. It's okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think I think it definitely depends on how they handle the situation. Like I said before, I'm personal at me, and I think I speak for everyone else or most of the community when we don't really care about the actual delay as long as we know the delay is happening. And I think that communication will, be upheld with the new CM coming in.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I think as long as they communicate about it, we're fine. Yeah, the
yeah.
biggest thing is making sure that you communicate, and then I think a smart thing for them to do would be to get to a point where they're basically already ready to launch a finished product, and then set a release date for it. Versus
Yep.
setting it out and just kind of leaving it out there to get fixed and fixed and fixed, and then delayed and delayed and delayed.
Yeah, it definitely feels like every time Stephen, is announcing a release date, it's like he just asked the developers a few seconds ago, "Hey, when do you think? What's like the general ETA on this whole thing?" And they're like, "Oh, 2 weeks." And then he's like, "Okay, all right, Glorious Ashes community, we have it coming out in 3 weeks," kind of thing. You know, I definitely want to see him give it a little bit more thought in his release dates. Um, or at least
And
have someone hold him back.
And all that said, there is another point that I want to address, and this is less towards Intrepid and more towards our community, is that I think something that we all need to realize is that we're all really edge case players. We are not the norm players. We are
Yeah.
the people who are very, very passionate about these kinds of games. We are not the general audience.
Hmm.
And we need to kind of ratchet things down a little bit. Just because there's a delay in the castle siege doesn't mean it's the end of the world. I'm not going to name any names, but some people need to calm the F down.
I agree. It is an early access. It's an in development, heavy development game. There's going to be patches constantly. Things are going to be changed, and all of this is working toward a better MMO RPG. Let's not forget about that aspect
Yeah.
of why this stuff exists. So everybody, yeah, chill the F out for a minute. It's okay. Just take a deep breath and go with the ride because it'll be okay. It'll be okay. We have a product that we can see being developed. We can actually see it. It's not, oh, we're working on this video game in the background. No, we can see it. We can actually touch it. So it's good. It's good.
Yeah, and I mean they're a brand new studio that an indie developed studio. It, they're not AAA, and they're giving us the benefit of being transparent, and I think that's a
An
lot.
unprecedented level of transparency and accuracy.
Yeah.
That's something that we take for granted a lot of the time. We at first we're like, oh, cool, like they're so upfront about it, but now we're just like, give us more. I think yeah, as a community, we have to just kind of take a chill pill.
A little bit, yeah. That's definitely true. At the end of the day, they're doing something that I think is going to be epic at the end of the day. I think when it comes down to it, we're going to get the MMO that we're all hoping for. Having just, had a chance to speak with Steven, get to pick his brain a little bit or just, talk to him and see how passionate he is about this. He's making the game at the end of the day that he wants to play. So I'm confident. I'm confident that we're going to get there. It might take a little bit longer, but that's okay.
And you can definitely see on that point how much Steven loves the game just every single time that he does one of these podcasts, because he's constantly looking around in awe at the world that he's helped build, which is something I find very...
Now, if it gets to be 5 years from now and they're still selling packages that are $27,000 for some dragons,
Yeah.
starts to cough. All right, so
Do you guys
at that
remember
point-
back when Oblivion came out and they released the horse armor DLC? Because
Me
I
per-
feel like that sometimes when they release certain packages.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
I mean, kind of going on to that point, you know, going to our sixth point and our last point of this podcast, the monetization of the apocalypse and especially the VR on an open beta product. What are your thoughts on that? A lot of people in the community was very negative on that because we have the backer packages, we had the Kickstarter packages, but that's getting early access to the MMORPG that were promised.
Right.
This is more monetizing the Apocalypse BR
Right.
that we never really were thrilled with in the first place. What do you think?
So I'll tackle that first if it's okay with you guys. When it comes down to it, you really shouldn't be monetizing something that's not finished yet. When you're paying for a product, you want the product to be polished, to be smooth. I mean, as a gaming industry, we've gotten way too into this early access, pay for early access. You kind of get in a little bit before, but at the end of the day, it's not a finished product, right? And some of the costs of these embers is just honestly way too high. I think what they should do in this case, and to help kind of support it, would be to sell some specific packages as far as like cosmetics go. So like sell the cosmetics specifically, where you could just buy each cosmetic, but having a battle pass like you do in PUBG or in Fortnite, I don't think that's quite called for in this case. I don't think it's in a ready state where that's actually really worth it. I think if you want to buy some cosmetics for it and have those cosmetics specifically support this game, I think that would be fine, because at the end of the day, you'll get those cosmetics no matter what. But a battle pass where you have to buy embers, where you have basically almost like a scheme similar to how you have it like on a mobile game, I think that's just a little too. It kind of seems too greedy, even though I know that's not necessarily the case. It puts a bad taste in your mouth.
Well, I'd like to interject into that and note, though, that we're exactly the group of people who would do that, though, because this is a game where we all paid into a Kickstarter, and probably most of us, I mean, many people have paid, hundreds of dollars, if not thousands of dollars, to get into the MMO. And so these are people that are willing. I think somewhere along the line, there became a bad practice. Once upon a time, people were allowed into a closed or open beta of testing of a video game, and they didn't have to pay for this, quote, early access. The video game makers wanted people to get in and try out their game before they actually released it to the public. And then Sony Online Entertainment at one point decided, hey, let's charge people to come in and test our game instead of us paying them, because really they're unpaid employees. But okay, no, we're going to actually charge them. And so this bad habit practice has come a long way. I don't think that monetizing a game that is not okay, if they want to call it early access, if they have an open beta, if they have the game up 24/7, it is launched, whether it's complete or not, if it is launched, they can charge. That's fine. But if it is not, and they take down the servers and they work on it and then they bring it back up and they take it back down, and that's not a product even in beta, because beta is the polish time before release. That's all that is. It's a polish. And at that point, you want to pay for it, fine. If it's not to that point, then it's not okay. And it's just a bad habit. And I am one of those very people that went and bought the battle pass. Battle passes and that sort of thing is nothing brand new to these types of games. They're out there, and they're a hell of a lot better than loot crates. All right, because at least you know what you're getting, and that's great. But it's not ready for that yet, because I bought it, and 2 days, less than 48 hours later, the servers came down, and have been down for 3 weeks since.
Right. Now, I do think they did reduce the cost of the embers themselves a little bit, or at least the costs of the pass itself, which if they did that, and I'm just reading some of the chat here, that's good. I mean, that's a really good move in that case. But one thing I think that the main reason I supported supported the MMO in the first place, because I really wanted to see this project come to completion and be the absolute best version it could. It wasn't to get access to be able to play early or to get some cosmetics. Those are nice bonuses to that. But for me personally, it was to make sure that this company could succeed in what it was trying to do. Because at the end of the day, I want to play the game that they're making. With the Battle Royale, though, I mean, I put 1,400 hours into PUBG. I put a lot of time into that game. I do enjoy Battle Royales, but it wasn't really the game that I was wanting to support, So I think, keeping the costs low for cosmetics or the costs low for their battle pass is a smart idea, just because realistically it's not a finished product yet. And at the end of the day, it's going to be one of those things where people will regret buying into something if it's not something they actually wanted in the first place.
Now, there's something I want to point out that a lot of people don't really take into consideration when they have discussions like this, and that's value is a very, very subjective thing. Something that I would think is cheap, and I'm a 28-year-old with a full-time job, is probably even prohibitively expensive for, say, somebody like Danny, who's currently a college student. No
Yes.
offense, not picking
You're
on you. I'm
good. You're
just
good. You're good.
so when people are considering like what is too much, I mean, yes, it might be too much for you, but it isn't for somebody else. Now, when I look at the value proposition of the things that they do have monetized in this, like the skins you can buy and the different articles of, you know, the different weapons and making your character look cool and stuff like that, and I look at the price that they're presenting, um, I have to keep that in mind. However, I also have to look around at what I can spend that money on elsewhere, and what I can say is I can buy a set of blue robes in Ashes of Creation that looks really neat and it's really cool, and I would like to have those robes, but that's $20 for just an article of clothing in a video game. I can take that same $20, save 5 of it, and I can buy Chrono Trigger, which is one of the best RPGs of all time, for $15 on Steam. You're gonna tell me that those robes are worth Chrono Trigger for the amount of entertainment I'm gonna get from them?
Well, that brings me to Monocle Gate and Eve Online, and I'll keep this very brief. But when a monocle, just a cosmetic monocle to put in your eye, cost $80 or roughly $80 in real life, and what could you have done with that? Or a pair of pants would cost $50 real life money to get in that game, and yet you could buy a pair of pants for 25, 35, 45 bucks, cheaper in real life than in a video game. There's a problem for art.
Adding on to that, I mean, there are skins in certain games that are unbelievably priced. You got knives in CS that are worth like upwards of, $150 to, a couple grand. And
Yep.
people are willing to spend that much money on a knife in a game, so it all comes back to value to the customer. If
But
they
it's exploitive, though.
True.
Yes, people are willing to pay that, but they're preying off someone's situation, which is probably an unhealthy mental situation if they're willing to pay $150 on a knife inside of a video game that's nothing than a cosmetic piece. So it's exploitive, and it's a negative thing, and I'm not happy with it.
So I'm not
I
sure if
will say, though, the reason why those skins specifically are so expensive is because those companies have loot crate models where you can't go out and buy that
True.
specific item.
Right.
They're random. So your only hope of buying it is somebody else got it in a random crate, and now they're charging you extra for spending all that time opening loot crates and spending so much of their money to get that.
Yeah. At the end of the day, I'm not sure if I agree that it's even harmful necessarily. I think that obviously some people do have addictions, and some people do have problems, just like they do with gambling or they do with other things in life. Like some people binge watch Netflix all day. They just literally waste all their time doing that, right? Like I personally might sit down one day and watch all 60 episodes of, like an anime or something. Um, so at the end of the day, it's kind of just like, what's your preference, right? Like, what do you like to do and what do you want to spend your money on? And I think there needs to be some level of personal responsibility for that. If you can't afford it and you're spending your money on it, that's on you. It's not on the company. Um, the other part of it as well, when it comes down to it, is, you have to understand. Like, for me personally, I'm a collector. Yeah, I like to get as many cosmetics as I can because I want to have everything. That's just me personally. I don't in real life need very much in terms of clothing or articles. I have, 3 pairs of jeans and a bunch of t-shirts and polos. Um, but those things cost me very little and they last me for years. With something that I really enjoy, like a video game, I want to have everything in that game because then I can show it off at a later point. It's like a little bit of a prestige thing for me that, even though it doesn't really matter in real life, to me it matters in this game, which I'm enjoying. So I think it's fine to have cosmetics that do cost money and that are more expensive. I think it's just you have to have an understanding that it is personal responsibility as well, to where if you can't afford it or if you do have an addiction, you need to go get help if you're trying to spend all your money on this. But it's on you at the end of the day.
That
Yeah.
that said, I think they'd get a lot more mileage if these skins cost like $5 as opposed to.
Yeah, and I mean,
Yep.
let's be honest, most of them are just recolorization of the same item. You got your red shield, your blue shield, your green shield, and then like your like white shield. Same thing, but with the axes. Same thing, et cetera, et cetera. With these, they look cool. Don't get me wrong, I love them, but why spend $20 on a recolor of the same item, you know? If it and then you can go to the argument of, it's helping develop the game. Well, if I want to help if I want to back the game, I'm going to back the game. If I've already backed the game, why I don't know. It's kind of null at that point. Uh, I don't.
I think that whenever it comes back to monetization, I think that one of the standards that I personally use is that $1 for an hour of entertainment. If I'm going to pay into a battle pass and I spend $10, if I'm going to get 10 hours out of that battle pass that I'm really going to enjoy, it was worth it.
Yeah.
If you're going to spend $150 on a shield and you're going to use that shield for 150 real life hours of gameplay, all right, man, all right. But just make sure you get the entertainment out of that which you're spending, and that's really where I come to the monetization. Be cautious, don't be impulsive, and take your time. The game's not going anywhere, even if something seems to like it's only for a limited time, which they haven't done. And I'm not saying Intrepid's doing that, but things always come back. They don't spend hours of artists and other developers to create an object in game, not to reuse that object. It'll be there.
Right. You also have phobos, though, the fear of being left out. Right? When it comes down to it, certain things, especially with like the way that Intrepid kind of does their business model, where they have, specific exclusive cosmetics that come out each month, and after that month they're gone. You, as like for myself as a collector, like I don't want to, miss out on that item and then not have it, in the future. So for me, like to grab that and basically have it in my collection, I may never pull it out. I may pull it out maybe like once or twice over the long term. But I don't want to necessarily lose out on that opportunity, right? And I know that's kind of like an irrational fear. It's not necessarily very meaningful, but at the time that I'm looking at it, I'm like, that's something that's cool, and I would enjoy having that in my collection. It's the same thing as like why people buy paintings or people buy, rare items in real life. They don't want to necessarily lose out on having that in their inventory or what basically what they're trying to do with their real life. In that sense.
Yeah. But kind of revisiting the topic, do you think it's right to monetize the BR in its current state?
Not in this state. It needs to be in a launch or just near launch before they really start monetizing.
Yeah, circling back to the original point, the monetization should be held off until we know that the servers are going to be up in around 24/7, and that's really all that can be said.
Yeah. Now, in the future, do you think the Castle Siege or Horde mode, do you think that those should be monetized? And if so, you would still want it to be in a more healthy state than what we saw the Battle Royale when it got monetized.
Well, those modes are going to be part of APOC. If APOC is already monetized before then de facto they're going to be monetized the second that they.
Hmm.
I think the cosmetics should each, apply. You should get, possibly just cosmetic rewards from just playing the game, but you should also be able to purchase cosmetic rewards. The whole battle pass thing that they're doing that doesn't sit quite well with me. The individual embers that you can buy to put towards things doesn't quite sit well with me. I think that is a little bit more predatory. And at the end of the day, I'm not really in favor of that kind of business model.
And I'll give this one other thing to it though, and this is a positive thing on Intrepid's part, and that is that that suit of armor that I've unlocked in for getting the pass in BR, that armor will carry over into the Castle Siege, but all these cosmetics also carry over into the MMORPG. So that investment directly applies back not only to everything within Apocalypse and all of its modes, but also to the proper other game that we're going to, at one point hopefully be playing together. So that is not a wasted investment either. It's good.
And that's definitely why I'm much less fussed about it than some other people are. I do feel like I'm going to be getting value back from this just because all of this stuff does carry over, but the fact of the matter is they're asking us to spend a lot of money before we have something that we can play consistently. So until we can play something consistently, they should back off a little bit.
Well, even $10 isn't too much. They're not asking for $50 or $100. Like $10 is reasonable. What
They
I
aren't
hope
for the battle pass, but the other skins like the Flaming Griffin or
Right.
the Azure Dragon robes, that's a different.
I will say that I hope that there is uniqueness, that when we're in the MMO someday, like 5 years from now,
2025.
and we're running around in Ashes of Creation, and somebody looks at me and they see me with like a particular color griffin or a particular armor or a particular whatever, or my wand looks like whatever, and they look at me and they go, how did you get that? You have to play Ashes of you have to play Apocalypse to get this item. It's not obtainable within the game itself. You got to go play the other game to unlock it for this one. That will be cool.
I do like that.
Yeah.
I think that's cool because you see that in multiple different games. Any kind of item that you are able to earn, or any item they're able to earn via playing from a really long time ago, or maybe a holiday edition that is no longer available. Any item that's no longer available and you have it is cool because then you're able to show it off and you don't feel like a sellout to where like, oh yeah, I spent $3,000 just to buy this item and I'm gonna flex on you. It's more of like, yeah, I was playing a long time ago. I'm a veteran. You're a noob.
I mean, to be honest, I like the idea of flexing on people, It's like, you want to show off, you want to peacock a bit,
Being a poor noob like myself, I'm not able to flex very often.
Focus on the latter part of the word peak.
Right.
Oh my.
Oh my. All right, guys.
Anyways, that's the end of our, all of our topics for today. We're going to be moving on to our Q&A section if we have any from chat. We got one from A Bounty.
Relevant questions.
Yeah, relevant, semi-relevant, It doesn't have to be completely Ashes related, but try to keep on topic. we have a question from A Bounty. Do you feel that the moral justifications for monetizing an incomplete standalone game mode should outweigh the business reason for monetization, and why?
So personally, I think that if they do it in the right way, yes, I think that you should be able to monetize an incomplete game. Now, obviously, I don't think you should go overboard on it, and I don't think that you should basically, put out like loot boxes, which they're not doing. But this is an example. But honestly, you have to pay for it, right? Like you have to be able to pay for this project. Essentially, what you're doing with that monetization is asking people to back your project versus asking someone to buy a product. If that makes sense.
True. Yeah, and I mean, like, the companies have to make money, right? At this point, Steven's invested what, 30 million plus into the game, so I'm sure he's eager to make some of his money back.
Yeah.
Or,
It feels almost like Bounty is luring us into an argument about the morals of capitalism.
In Russia. In Russia, games make you. All right.
I mean, if we don't have any more questions, we can probably just end it here.
Yeah, I
Which
think we're good.
All right. It's Sinbad. Why don't you give us the good old outro?
Sounds good, man. Well, all right. First of all, thank you guys for tuning in. We're going to be continuing to have episodes every Wednesday. I will be continuing to live stream them just like we're doing right now, and then we'll also upload the episode to YouTube afterwards. As far as the people we have here today, first of all, I'm going to start off with Danny. Obviously, we're watching on his stream right now, so you guys know where to find him. But for the YouTube channel, Danny, go ahead and tell them where they can locate you out there, man.
You can find me at twitch.tv/dphantomtv. I'll be streaming all the Ashes content you wish you can, see in the world. If you want to be competitive in any of the APOC modes, or essentially or eventually down the line, Ashes of Creation, holler at your boy. I got you.
All right. All right. Arius, you go next, man. Where can people find you? What are you up to?
All right, guys. Well, I'm currently streaming a lot of Atlas over the past week or two, and I'll be playing a lot of APOC starting Friday, hopefully, and streaming it. They can find me over on twitch.tv/ARIEUS. I'm also on Twitter, the Area Stream, and theareastream.com.
Awesome.
And on YouTube.
Hell yeah. All right, go check them out. And then Lyot, where can they find you at, man?
So, if people want to check us out, you can find me at youtube.com/thecyanfirefly. That is where we host all of our content. Right now, we're primarily covering Ashes of Creation, but as we get more back into the flow of things, we should be releasing content on any games that take our fancy.
Hell yeah, man. All right, and of course, I'm Sinbad. I'm the leader of Ember. We're an Ashes of Creation guild, focused on PvX. So we're going to be doing a little bit of everything. We do have an overall focus, though, on the economy. So we're going to be actually working really hard to dominate our server in that respect. I'm going to be leading this podcast here with Danny every week. We're going to be doing a lot of streaming, especially for Ashes of Creation and the Apocalypse. So if you want to check us out, you can find me personally at Sinbad_IRL on Twitch. Also on our YouTube channel, which is Ember TV. So you guys have a great night. Thank you very much for checking us out. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
This fire. I was born to be making history. Something greater, something higher. Ain't nothing gonna stop this fire.